Welcome to the Wrestling Independent. My name is Mike. Today on the show, we have Above Average Joe Scott. Above Average Joe Scott is someone that I think is a sleeper hit in the making. He's a little bit soft-spoken, and sometimes in the wrestling industry, people that are soft-spoken have a hard time being the ones that pop, that come out. But over time, I feel that those people start getting their due. He is a worker's worker. He's someone that is Johnny Rodz trained and was also a Johnny Rodz go-to, someone that Johnny Rodz put a lot of stock in over the years. So if you haven't heard of Above Average Joe Scott, do yourself a favor and check out the Above Average Bash that is coming up December 11th. And stay tuned. Right after this, Above Average Joe Scott.
None of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down. Hand over my crown. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
So welcome back, everybody, to the Wrestling Independent. My name is Mike. Today on the show, we have a man who got a 1300 on his SATs. He ran the mile in 4 minutes and 57 seconds. He was an AB honor roll student all through high school. And if he flips a coin 52 times out of 100, he can get heads. We have Above Average Joe Scott on the show today. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing very well. And you already know the answer, above average.
Above average. Also, real quick, before we get started, I want to congratulate you. 1 year anniversary. Am I right about that? Did I just see?
What, marriage?
Yes.
Yes.
Or is just,
yes.
Yeah, see?
We're a little bit past a year, yeah.
A little bit past a year of marriage. Okay. Very nice, very nice. So real quick, Above Average Joe Scott, he's a wrestler from the New Jersey, New York area. We try to have people on here from all over. We've had people from Texas. We've had people from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Why don't you tell, for the people that might be getting introduced to you, tell us a little bit about yourself so they know who Joe Scott is.
Yeah, like you said, mainly in New Jersey now, kind of do some stuff in PA and definitely back in New York, going back into New York since the whole COVID thing. They're starting up again. But yeah, my roots are in Queens and Brooklyn. I started off with Johnny Rodz in 2007 and kind of worked my way up from there. And that's I met Johnny Rodz a couple years prior to that at a Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame upstate. Can't remember if that was Amsterdam or that little town. I can't really say the name of Schenectady.
Schenectady?
Yeah, there we go. I always have problems with that one. And so it was at one of those Pro Wrestling Hall of Fames that I met Johnny Rodz. I kind of, he gave me his card and I kind of slept on it for a year or two because I was like in high school or college at the time. My timeline is all fuzzy. You'll probably see that through the interview, but
that's okay.
Yeah, being a wrestler and stuff like that, I don't document this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I should have wrote this stuff down like Chris Jericho.
a very an old independent wrestler. I'm not going to say who his name was, but he used to work for a very large retail chain as their head accountant. Once said, if you ever see them go under, it's been too many bumps, brother. Because that was his shoot business or shoot job on the side. So I understand not understanding or not completely getting the timeline correct. Now you're a Johnny Rodz guy. Now Johnny Rodz is someone that I've talked about on the show. We've had a couple other Johnny Rodz guys on here. Johnny Rodz, for me, I'm a Philadelphia guy. I grew up during the time of ECW. Johnny Rodz is almost like a myth at this point in the independent wrestling scene. I say personally, if you're a Johnny Rodz guy, you were trained correctly. Yes. You probably have this brawler spirit in you that you don't see. And I was talking with someone because the way that he teaches is very physical and very much teaching you how to lay into stuff. Is that an apt description of Johnny Rodz?
Pretty much, yeah. And
what was your experience with him?
I know you had PJ Savage on a little bit earlier, and it's funny because like I was there about like 7 years because I joined 2007. I kind of left 2014 to move to like 2014 2015 to move to Jersey where I live now with my current wife at the time, my girlfriend. But at that time we were at the other Gleason's gym, so he was in the office a little bit more than he was when PJ was there. So you kind of get like two different spectrums of like
Hmm.
of training because like when like now the new I visited the new Gleason's like a year or two ago, and like his office is right by the ring, so he'll be there a little bit more. He was a little, I mean, he was there in the ring, but I got more of the training from like guys like Mike Gallagher, George Santi, Flex, like the guys that Johnny helped train himself, Roger the Musketeer, Billy Walker, names you're probably familiar with.
A little bit.
Larry blanking on his name right now, but like got a got a lot of got a lot of hard way into it, but like especially like from Gallagher, like when I was joining in, he just did the Harley race training, so he
Okay.
came back with like guns ablazing, like we're going to do squats, we're going to do all the drills I did in Harley races. So I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I had a whole bunch of different like training with like a lot of different people.
Yeah, and what I really meant about Johnny Rodz is he's one of those guys you really have to be on the top of your game to even want to train with him because it's very physical. I know that he works people really hard, and I really appreciate the style that he ingrains into his students. Not that everybody doesn't have their own style, but
Yeah,
you can usually tell by the way somebody throws hits if they're a Johnny Rodz guy.
yeah,
That's all
no,
I meant.
definitely. No, 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 no. I totally get that too.
Um, so we have a number of different things that I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about is Upper Limit Pro Wrestling. They are a great organization. They've hooked me up with a number of different people. They got us together. The one thing that I was told is I must bring up that match that you had with Donovan. I went back, I watched it a little bit ago. That was a really, really good match.
Yeah,
What can you tell us a little bit about Upper Limit?
well,
And
it's funny because I started seeing him advertise Raul. I started seeing him advertise, and after I was kind of wanted to get back in wrestling because I took COVID off, and I was like, I was still training and still like trying to get my still like have my name relevant and stuff like that on social
Mhm.
media and stuff like that. But like, it stuck out to me, and I was like, I saw Upper Limit, and I'm like, that's cool, and it says Boudin, New Jersey, and I live in Boudin, New Jersey, and I'm like, I'll shoot him an email and see what happens, and I shot him an email, and he was like, oh, cool, you're local. I don't think he really. I sent him like one of my matches and stuff like that. He was like, okay, I have a perfect opponent for you, and that was Mike Donovan. I was like, oh wow, like he's a really high level like athlete too, and I'm like, I never really worked him in the ring before that. I've seen his work, and I like his work and stuff like that, and I knew I could bring a good I could get a good match with him, and I knew I have to live to that name above average, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
like,
you carve yourself into a corner with that name where you have the above average and you got to everything has to be 115%.
yeah, exactly. And then like it's more of a mindset for me. I was like, I have to strive. I mean, I always strive for perfection, but like I gotta go hard, and like for Ryu to have trust, for them to have trust in me, Upper Limit to have trust in me to go in there and have a high level match as I did with Mike Donovan, and I have to step up and prove that not only like I could deliver, but I have to also raise the game and be above average.
Very nice. Now, one of the things that we talk about on this show is there's kind of 2 points in a wrestler's life. And let's talk about the first one. What was the first thing that drew you into pro wrestling when you were younger? Was it a family tradition? Was it you were a kid looking for your own thing? How did you first get involved in wrestling?
It was full credit to my dad. He was a lifelong wrestling fan. He I sat down and watched wrestling with him. I always say like two ages that like struck me as like 7 and 11 was like 11 was when I said I want to be a wrestler, and 7 was like, oh yeah, this is cool, because you had the larger than life fans. Like, I'm from the '80s, so you got the Hogans, you got the
Hmm.
Warriors, so those were big influences at the time. And then you transition was another big one for me was Cactus Jack when he was at Mankind. It was when he came into WWE as Mankind, and you had that different promo, a different face. Like he didn't fit the mold of like a professional wrestler, and he stood out to me a lot. And I I stem a lot from that too. But like I always say around that time, I always like had the action figures, the wrestling buddies, I the video games. So that's like where I stem from, like the old school style of WWF at the time.
Who were the guys that first kind of, you said Cactus Jack? What were like the first like real guys that you were attached to, that you went towards?
Oh, definitely Hogan. Hogan was my man, and also Legion of Doom. I still have a picture of me when I was younger. I had the spikes and everything like that. So
That's awesome.
so with the title belt, and like it, it's funny too because like when I started with Johnny Rodz, to go back to that, I started as a tag team wrestler. I didn't envision that, but like it kind of just happened. I came around the same time as my friend Paul Calvi, and he put us together, so that worked out very well. And I have a higher respect for tag team wrestling now than I did before. I mean, I didn't really understand it the way I do now. It's a whole different like ball game than singles wrestling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a different style, different psychology to it. You build the match completely different. Yeah, and so you said you knew at 11. What at 11 made you say this is what I want to do? That's a curious
I
question.
I don't know, but I always say that's the time that I was like, oh, this is something I want to do. But like at the time, I didn't know how to go about doing it. I was messing around with friends. I got in trouble in high school for snap. I had a friend behind me. I remember snapmaring him just on the ground, and there's just little parts of my life. I did wrestling moves here and there, but like we didn't have the internet back then, or to be like, oh, I want to go there, and probably at 11 they wouldn't let me do that, and it didn't happen until I was started to be older, and I started to mess around with a couple of my friends on the beach, and they were like, Joe, you're really good, and you should not be doing this on the beach, and you should really try to pursue that in a ring. And I was like, I don't have a lot of confidence. I didn't have a lot of confidence myself.
Mhm.
Some of it still lingers, um, but I was like, in 2007 when I started Johnny Rodz, just a fire lit into me, and that was the moment I was like, you know what, I have this card. I met Johnny Rodz. I kind of looked into some schools, and his was like one of the best ones. It was in Brooklyn. I could travel. I could transport there. I was just finishing up my degree in college. I was doing a internship and getting finishing my last class to get my degree. So I was like, this is perfect timing. I'm back home. I'm about to finish college, and why not try wrestling?
Very cool. Now, we have you starting in 2007, going through Johnny Rodz. We have you a little bit talking about what's kind of happened after COVID. What made up that time in between? What were you traveling around doing? How were you honing your craft during kind
Yeah,
of like that 10-year chunk?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to chew on in that 10-year chunk. That definitely for sure. Like I spent, I want to say a good like 2 or 3 years at Johnny's, because that was also the time period where the New York Athletics Commission stepped into. So he wasn't he usually has monthly student shows. So I joined in February, and I didn't have my first match until like May or June, because the New York Athletic State of Commission now like enforce you got to have these kind of laws and stuff like that. And that's kind of where they kind of stepped up. And I'm like, I kind of I'm happy that it happened that way because I feel like I had a couple more months to like train and get better, and I could put on a good show for the first time around. But
Hmm.
yeah, I stood a couple years over there, but like you've heard PJ and probably other Johnny guys. Once you start like dipping your toes in the other independents, I started going to Ace and New Jersey and dipping my toes in some other water. And Johnny didn't really like that too much, and because like I was one of the guys that he liked, so I always try to be loyal to Johnny, and it didn't really I tried a couple different places here and there, but I just like always go back to Gleason's, always go back to Johnny's. So
Hmm.
um it was then what was the like this promotion, new generation wrestling. They were had like a short stint. They also got once New York Athletic Commission got a little bit stricter with the whole ambulance, and you got to have a promotion license and stuff like that. So that company went under because they couldn't handle that that burden. I was like it was like a new company. I was kind of like one of their faces of their company, and I became one of the world champions at the time, and then I lost it to Rodney Banks, and that folded. Then 2015, I moved to Jersey. That's kind of what like when things picked up for me because I didn't have that fallback to Gleason's plan on my on my back on my on my backhand, and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
I could actually explore, and I started doing stuff with Gino. So Gino does a lot of stuff, especially like New York, and he runs
Yeah.
brings a lot of people, and you could go to Lucha's shows, and it started intermingling with people like, oh hey, come here. It was a little bit more freedom than it was at Johnny Rodz. Also, in that little gap of time period, I always say between 2010 2013ish, I started acting more than wrestling because I had a little bit of a as a wrestler you need that down period. I feel like because like it wasn't in I wanted to do it because I would still go to training, but then I was like it wasn't
You have
there, you know.
you have to find a way to fuel your passion, and
Yeah,
sometimes that passion needs a little bit of help. I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah. So like that was at that time I was doing more acting than I was wrestling, and that was picking up for me. I was still having fun and not doing the labor on my body, and I was doing a lot of theater by me, and I started getting background gigs on films like um shows and stuff like that. The most notable one was Boardwalk Empire. But I
Nice.
would do gigs here and there, and I was like, oh, this is still fun, and I'm not doing a whole lot of damage to my body. So that picked up a lot too. Trying to
Well, one of the things that I like is what a lot of fans don't see is the grind, and that's kind of what you're talking about, and that's what I wanted to hit on a little bit is the grind that is pro wrestling. And because obviously if we were going to sit here and dissect all those years, we'd be sitting
yeah,
here
exactly.
talking for hours and everything. That was just kind of like an overview, but there really is a grind. And one of the things that I think is important to note is wrestling. Every once in a while you see those people that pop up 2 or 3 years on the scene, and all of a sudden they're like world famous. What I think a lot of people don't know is it really takes a good 10, 15 years before people are really able to put out their names. Even a lot of the guys that you're seeing in AEW now were people that were on the scene for 15, 20 years just trying to get their name out there. And that really is a hard job from what I've seen.
Yeah, no, that's I totally agree because I'm like I wasn't like it took me about like 10 to 12 years to start hitting my stride. I feel like it wasn't until I started doing this other promotion at Gino, it's called BBWF. Now they're calling it Primetime Wrestling, which is go come back
Mm-hmm.
next year to go start it up again. But like it was another one of those up and coming. They restarted it again, and I was like, oh. and and then after that, I was like started getting momentum and kind of cut off again. But like I started like 3 years ago. I started training with Damian Adams. That also changed my game a bit too, because it's like almost like a finishing class for me because he's teaching you more psychology and getting you better. And I'm like, I wouldn't be
Hmm.
above average if it wasn't for Damian Adams and what I learned there and the trips we went on.
Hmm. Now, so I mean, even in this little bit of time that we're talking about, that we've talked, you've already mentioned three different schools or two
Yeah.
or a few different schools that even just helped mold you who you are. Um, Now, when you were coming up and when you were in high school and you go to college and you get ready to you get this card from you get this card, you start training. What kind of how do you start plotting your path forward? What kind of goals and stuff do you start setting for yourself? And do
I
your
mean,
goals today look the same that they did back then? What kind of things are you
definitely
looking
not. I
for?
was I was very not narrow-sighted. I definitely wanted to end game the WWE. I strived for that, and one of the things kind of that stopped me in 2010 to kind of keep the motor running in wrestling was like I did a tryout in Florida Championship Wrestling and I didn't get a great review and I wear my emotions on my sleeve and that was one of the things that got to me. I didn't get a great review, so I was like, oh man, instead of like letting that fuel me, I let that get to me, and then that really brought me down. It wasn't on. It took me a couple of years to kind of recover from that. And looking back at that, I should have just let it fuel me and make me
Mhm.
better instead of like bring me down.
Um, Now, what are you? We have a couple different shows that are coming up, and I want to talk a little bit about some of them in just a moment. Um, w- we just came out of COVID. You talked about how you were trying so hard to keep your profile, especially at the end. You had that awesome match with Donovan. You do have a few things on the horizon that we're going to talk about in just a moment. What are you hoping your 2022 looks like? What kind of things are you hoping to do with that?
Oof, yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm like, I want to kind of hit it hard because I feel like I owe it to myself, but
Okay.
I still have a relationship to maintain, so I got to find a healthy balance between the two for sure. Um,
Hmm.
got to keep wife happy. Um,
Absolutely. Happy wife, happy life.
exactly.
I
That's what I was about to
work to
say.
do that every day.
Exactly. That's what Bob Evans said, and like I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. So thank you, Bob Evans. Yeah, I went to one of his seminars, like happy wife, happy life. So
Absolutely.
definitely hard to find a balance between work, wrestling, and trying to keep my shape and then getting the bookings and also the weekends is when I do stuff with the wifey.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely I was definitely want to get out there a little bit more, maybe get my name out there a little bit more, maybe AEW dark match, that would be cool. Um, that's kind of what my goal is. I'm not really striving for a lot, but I feel like I could bring something to the table.
And you want to know what? I mean, I'm going to be honest. And a person above average, Joe Scott, that sounds like the perfect kind of person that they would want to bring into an AEW Dark. And I like that they're giving independent
Yeah.
wrestlers that chance right now, and that they're trying to showcase as many as them as they possibly can. Um, Now let's talk about some of the things that you have on your agenda. Um, we have Above Average Bash 3 coming up. Now, this is something you've been kind of teasing for a little bit. You've been trying to get this going. Why don't you tell us about Above Average Bash?
Yeah, I've slowly been putting up the matches on my Instagram. It's um 2019, I did a promo at D2W saying above average bash because they had their holiday thing going on too. So I had a little promo with my cousin Kyle Angus, and I did this little thing. It's on my YouTube, Above Average Joe Scott, and then I did the second one last year, like kind of pandemic one, just something for fun, and I did something like that, and I was like, why not raise the bar this year and try to make a little show out of it? And I still go to Geno's and ECPW Training Center, so that was the ring is right there, the facility is there. I started asking wrestlers that I know that will would like to do it, and I got a lot of yeses and not a whole hell of a lot of no's, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So now I got the card. I haven't revealed it yet, but I, one thing I'm looking forward to is I'm going to face Colossal Mike Law. So that's a
Okay.
really big task ahead of me. And I got a lot of I have three up and comers from Spartan Championship Wrestling, Joe Cruel, Ton of Walk, Abed Aronis. Got the vet in Rob Chase, facing one of the new guys in ECPW, Timid Tamir. And I got a good tag match with Andy Bivens, Love Jones, who's going to make a name for himself, and got my cousin Kyle Angus and his brother Kevin Angus tagging up as the Great Scots against them. So I got four solid matches, and I'm like, I haven't really seen these matches anywhere else, and Jones and Bivens haven't really been tagged up before, but I kind of envision them together because they almost a similar characters, because they both stem from the Rick Rude, and they both have a Rick Rude kind of feel to them. So I'm like,
Okay.
a good blend, and I know Great Scots, they're brothers, so they're a really good tag team, and I'm like, I wanted to have a little bit of everything,
Yeah. How does it feel for you with this show coming up, being on the other side of the pencil as opposed to the side you're usually on?
Yeah, it's weird, and I'm like, it's also weird that I asked these people, and I'm like, they didn't say no, and I'm like, they have enough. I want to, if they listen to them, I want to, if they listen to this, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because this show wouldn't happen without them. Because it's I didn't think enough people had trusted me, and I'm seeing it now. A lot of people like me, and they speak highly of me, and then I'm like, it's kind of weird because I'm not used to
And
that.
and here's the thing. I'm going to be completely honest. I've only, obviously this is the first time you and I are talking kind of face to face, but it seems to be a lot of the stuff that I look up about Above Average Joe Scott is the one thing that's above average, is how nice and what a great guy he is. Because it seems like nobody has anything bad to say about you right now.
Yeah,
And that's not, and that's kind of rare in the wrestling industry. So good on you with that, honestly.
oh, thank you.
That's not something you hear too many people about,
Yeah.
about for too many people. What else do you have on the horizon? What else do you have coming up?
This weekend was supposed to be another big thing with NEW New Evolution Wrestling. They have their big comeback show from COVID-2. They have their 3rd year anniversary which they're linking it with the big event. The big event. And
No, I don't.
yeah. It's like a big convention they have at
the big event. I thought you were okay. Yeah, I heard about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they're kind of tying in with that wrestling show, and I was gonna face PJ Savage, but that didn't work out. So I'm facing one of my actually primetime rivals, Izzy Reyes, and I was gonna bring out this other character I had when I was messing around with my friends on the beach, Havoc. I brought him up. I did a couple promos about it, but I kind of took it down because I really wanted to bring. I really feel that character is meant to face PJ Savage, so I'm kind of go put that on the back burner, and I'm still go do Above Average, but he's got a lot to deliver too, and that card is stacked. You got Ace Austin, and you got a lot of good guys on there, so it's another chance to raise the bar and put my name out there. So why not bring Above Average Joe Scott to the table? And I got also December 11th is actually a double header, accidentally, because I booked my show first, and then Gino's having his Christmas Chaos, which is like one of his big events too. And I'm facing Conor Riley in an I Quit match. So we've been having a few past couple TVs. He's been we were like really good friends, and now he turned his back on everybody and even me. He gave me a shot to the back, and he like, last time he had my arm in a in an arm lock and he wouldn't let go. So my arm's still kind of recovering from it, but I've been taking good care of it. And so I get to face him in an I Quit match. They haven't announced it yet, but Gino told me that's what's going to happen. So
Very nice.
yeah.
Now, so you got the doubleheader on the 11th, which bless you for running a show and then going to another show after that.
I was like, oh,
you're going to be heading out the door, handing paychecks on your way out while you're trying to make it to your next stop.
Exactly.
So you've had a decent length career. You've been through COVID. You went through a time where you were trying to do acting a little bit more than you were in the ring. What is the passion that keeps Above Average Joe Scott going? What's the thing that when you do want to say, you want to know what, I'm not going to work out today, I'm not going to take a bump today to be ready for this, I'm not sure I want to sketch stuff out. What's the passion that drives you? What are you getting still?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the answer. It's like it's weird. I don't know if you pay attention to my Instagram a lot. I do like a lot of motivation on Mondays. I have like this Monday motivation thing.
Yeah, you're a very positive person. Definitely.
Yeah, I try to keep it positive because like 2019, 2018, you know how people were like, oh, Monday, it's the start of a new week, this is going to be crucial. And my wife was even getting to me on that, like, oh, this is what Monday feels like. I'm like, no, just turn this around and make it a positive, especially in 2020. It's trying to seek more positivity out of everything. And it's kind of why I made like try to make it a point to hit Motivation Monday. I try to, if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And that's kind of like my mindset. Is what kind of keeps me moving forward. Is like, if there's somebody ahead of you, it's like that race. You have somebody ahead of you and you want to pass that person. It's that drive. It's that drive in me. I guess it's also the above average in me. I need to do better. I want to do better. I want to show people that I can do better, and that's kind of my drive. I've always been a hardworking person, and I'm humble and I'm humbled about it. But I know there's more, and I don't know what that more is, but I want to grab it. It might be in front of me, but I'm going to reach out and grab that more.
So now let's circle back to what I consider to be my favorite question that I ask everybody. For people that listen to the show, if you listen, this is my favorite question to ask. So you're driven by possibility. You're the person that's driven by possibility. The possibility that you could get on AEW Dark, the possibility you get to run your own show, the possibility that you get to make a name for yourself, the possibility that you get to prove to everybody that you're above average. And I think that that's great. Now, my question to you is, let's take you as this inquisitive, positive person. What do you say to that kid sitting back on the beach with his friends where he's contemplating going to go to wrestling school that day? What do you say to him?
Say, keep focused, keep that drive going. And I had a couple distractions along the way. I would say don't get distracted. I had a couple things of like, I have a couple what ifs in my back pocket. Like, oh, if this happened, what would have happened? But don't worry about that. Don't worry about WWE. Do you? You know, you got to believe in yourself, and like people believe in you. People know you're good. people know you're above average, and you're going to be above average. You may not be above average now, and you may not even know what that means, but you will become that guy. Because I wasn't always above average. I was Joseph Toby Scott. I took a name journey as well. When I moved to New Jersey, I was just Joe Scott, and then in primetime wrestling, I became Thunder Joe Scott, and that the long car ride with Robbie E, who's now Robert Stone, he came up with the above average thing, and I was like, I didn't, I kind of toyed around with the average and above average, and during COVID, I was like, no, I need the brand. I need one brand, and that's gonna be above average, and then that's it, and that's kind of my focus now. So I would tell,
So your focus is that above average mindset,
yeah,
that you need to be the above average.
yeah,
I want to say from me to you, Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate you for being on the show. I got to say, I knew a certain amount about you coming into the interview. I came out of the interview, God damn, I'm a bigger fan than when we first started talking. You're one of those guys that just kind of wins people over. I really dig that. I love the work ethic that I see from you on the internet. I mean, your matches you do, for people that haven't subscribed to Above Average Joe Scott's page on YouTube, please go do that. He cuts and puts tremendous promos on there before his shows, whenever he's out somewhere. So get a chance to do that. Watch that match with Donovan from Upper Limit Wrestling. I'll put a link to it. It's on Upper Limit Wrestling's YouTube page. And Joe, if you ever need anything, honestly, stay in contact. I would definitely love to have you on the show again.
that'd be awesome. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
To say thank you for listening to or watching that episode of The Wrestling Independent. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe, and where you can, leave a 5-star review. Please, we're always looking for feedback, so give us an email at thewrestlingindependent@gmail.com.